Hey, so we're going to learn some stuff. This particular video is going to be, as you guessed from the title, about pentatonics. A couple things to note before we get going. First and foremost, I am no teacher. I am new to this. This is my first attempt at doing this. So I apologize if things seem rushed, scattered, or everything. Please bear with me. But if you have any suggestions or comments or questions at all, please leave them in the comments. I'm an open book, more than happy to answer anything that you guys have. Second thing to note is I got two cameras rolling right now. You can see this one coming down right here to see my fingerings and what we're going to be doing and how we're going to practice. I have the nice camera focused on that because I feel like it's important to see what we're going to be doing. And I've got the shitty camera looking in my face to blur out, hopefully, the nonsense that we're going to be looking at, hopefully a small portion of the time. The third thing to note is the reason I'm doing this. The reason I'm doing this, nobody asked for this, it's just I just see a lot of guitar tutorials across YouTube. A lot of them are fantastic and really helpful. There's a lot of great people out there. But I see a lot of them too that are, they just kind of showcase their skills, what they can do, and then say, one day you too, you can be like this too. That's not what we're about. We're trying to just be a better musician and a player in general. And we're just trying to practice and get better at the things that and the areas that we might be weak at. These videos, they're way too long. You know, they're just trying to reach that 10-minute mark. You know what I'm talking about? They're just that 10-minute mark to kind of get their money or whatever. And I'm going to try and make these as short, condensed as possible. Just because, you know, you're here. Unfortunately, this is going to be a little longer because of this big introduction. But just bear with me. I want it to be short, concise. And if you do have questions, if I skip something, please ask. I'm more than happy to answer. So without any further ado, let's hop into what we're going to be doing. So pentatonics. So penta. I mean, there's five. There's five forms that we're going to be looking at here. I'm going to put up a little chart that I've kind of drawn really poorly. And that chart's going to look really scary and, you know, really intimidating at first, but bear with me. I'm going to break it down as best as I possibly can. So everything that I'm going to be doing here is going to be taking place here. Ooh, if I can get the camera to focus in. Let me see here again. So everything that I'm going to be doing here is going to be in position 6. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. The 5th fret is position 6. Why is that not in focus? Oh, let's see if we can get it a little bit better. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So everything's going to be based around here. So with that in mind, let's look at form number 1. Form number 1 looks like this. Now I've got the major and the minor roots listed on that particular shitty drawing that I've got there. So in this case, you know, our major here for that one, major here, and an easy way to figure out the minor root of whatever form that you're in, this applies to the forms. So if this is the major, the one behind it, or excuse me, the one behind it in the right form is the minor root of that. So in form 1, major, minor, major, and that applies to the octaves and things like that. So that is form number 1. So the next form we're going to be looking at is form number 2, and that looks like this. So something I forgot to mention while we're going to be practicing these is how we're going to be practicing them with our left and our right hand, our trusty hands that we use to grab things with. So with your right hand, we'll focus right there. So whatever form you're doing, doesn't matter where you're doing it, you're going to be strictly alternate picking, and this is to build up speed in the future. So down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, and then of course down, up, down, up, down, up, etc. So it doesn't matter, apply to any form. The other thing is you notice that I'm particularly starting on my 2nd finger. That's just because you're basically going to give each fret one finger. So for form number 1, start on 2nd, move to 4th, and then move there, just because the stretch to there makes a lot more sense. And you move there because the stretch with your 3rd finger makes more sense, more or less, I suppose. There's going to be some shifting, which we'll cover at the end. I'll have a little demonstration of how we apply all of this. Right, moving on to form number 3. So form number 3 in that particular position 6 looks and sounds like this. And again, we can also apply our rules. You know, in this particular, you know, the major root starts right here for form number 3. Easy way to find that is every time you climb up one of those pentatonic forms. So, you know, form number 1 is right here. That will be our major root. And for form number 2, that will be the major root. We just drop it back to 1 note per string that we're playing in that particular form. So 3 is right there, and of course our trusty little rule for the minor, we drop it back there in that particular form. That would be the minor root. So now let's move on to form number 5. There's not a form, or there's not a form 4, and there's a little theory behind that. We won't get into that in this particular video, maybe in a future one. But this is number 5, and this in position 6 looks and sounds like this. And again, if we were to move that major root back 1 from our last form in this particular form, it'll be right there. So in this case, we'd be in D major. And just drop that back in that form right here. It would be B minor. B minor for the minor root for that particular form. So moving on to form number 6, which is probably the most commonly used, I don't want to say commonly used one, but the most commonly seen. And it's really versatile, which is probably why we see it and hear it a lot. So form number 6 looks like this. The only reason I did that is because we actually start at the beginning of the sequence. You're actually starting on the minor root because, like I said, number 5 was right here in that form. Bumping it over to form 6 puts the major right there. It's actually C major for form 6. It's kind of why I chose this particular form. And there's also a reason for that in the homework, I suppose. So again, form number 6 looks and sounds like this. So there are the 5 forms. Now I think it's worthy to note that it's probably a good idea to learn the major and the minor roots for each particular one. That way when you're applying it to your improvisation, or if you're modulating, which is just a fancy term for saying, you know, switching pentatonics or forms, depending on what chord that you're playing at the time, whether it be major or minor, you can know where to go, where to start, and how to apply it. To keep your playing not so stale and stiff and a little bit modern and better. So what we're going to be doing is, like I said, so we're going to be practicing alternate picking, and we're going to be doing just basically the fingering that makes sense to each particular form. Now, the way I want you to practice these, aside from that, in the order, I suppose, to do, is starting on number 6. And the mantra that I want you to just embed into your mind, which is 6-3 root 5-2. Say it out loud, 6-3 root 5-2. Say it over and over again and embed that to your mind. The reason for doing that is because if you start, it doesn't really matter where you start, it'll take you through the circle of 4s, which I'll hopefully put somewhere on the screen. And we'll get into that in another video, but for now, like I said, it'll just take you through those forms. But for starting at position 6, doing form 6, actually starts you at C. Like I said, it's C major. So it's going to take you through, you know, C, F, B flat, E flat, etc., and things like that. So it'll take you through the entire thing. So like I said, I'll quickly run through up and down all 5 forms in that particular way that we want to practice them. 3. Roots. 5. Two. And 6 again. So see, if you notice when I go back to 6, we've bumped it up to position 7, starting on the 6th fret. And like I said, it takes you all the way up to the neck. You can do it all the way up to neck, you just don't have any flipping room anymore, right? Because that's going to take you through the entire circle of 4s, and it'll start right back over again consistently. That's why 6-3 root 5-2. Practice it in that order. And you can practice it anywhere. It doesn't have to start on, you know, the 5th fret in position 6. You can start clear down here. right? And just go as much as you want to. Now, a couple things to note that you might have seen in that particular sequence is coming down from, what was it? Oh, coming into the root, which is where I went. It's because we finished that particular sequence of the third form, and then the next closest note, that's what you want to do, is the next closest note to, you want to play it starting there. So the root for number, the root, I suppose, the root form, number 1, coming off of 3, and just kind of picks up from there. And then also what you notice too is when I came off of form number 2, when it was, that was wrong. And I did it wrong again. So let's try that one more time. So when you're coming off of number 2, you'll notice that I had the proper fingering for those, but I switched to my third and made this absurd stretch all the way back here, and then came back. And the reason for that is when you come back to the form, when you come back to form 6, you're already in position to start it. So when you're coming back all the way up, I think it's a worthy skill or a worthy note to be doing that when you're coming back to it. So now this doesn't have to, you don't have to, and I'll show that in the example, you don't have to go all the way up and all the way down. What we're going to do is what I'll show you finally in this last example is just how we all mesh this together, you know, with a chord progression through the circle of 4s and, you know, rhythm behind it, and how even just practicing really can sound various and nice and, you know, like it kind of sounds like you know what you're doing. So that's basically all the pentatonic forms. If I missed anything, or if you have any questions, please, if you do have questions, ask me. You know, Twitter, the YouTube comments, that's what they're called, right? YouTube comments. Put them down there. I'm more than happy to ask. In the description, I always list all the hardware and everything that I use. If you have any questions on where to get, how to get, what I use, how I do this, please feel free to ask. I'm more than happy. I'm an open book. So with that, I'll just hop into the pre-made video that I made earlier of all of that nonsense blurred together into one. So thanks for watching.